Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
So,
Back for another week.
we are back for another week. I didn't know if right at the top we should sort of say, remember how last episode we talked about, maybe the state Liberals are going to have a spill? And then literally the next day they had the spill. I don't know even if our episode was live at the time that they actually spilled. And so we just look horrifically out of date.
The thing with...
I would say that we're actually wonderfully prescient is probably the better way to put it.
Okay, the age was wonderfully prescient.
Yes.
And we talked about it based on that. I mean, we hardly called it.
no,
man,
Tom,
I totally called it.
Pretty sure we're precogs, okay, mate? I'm pretty sure pretty sure that we could see stuff before it's happening, and we're sitting in a pile of goo, and Tom Cruise is going to visit us.
Yeah. Now, we all have two, fantastic heads of hair to be the precogs. If I recall, they were bald and creepy.
Now, you're going to get mad at me, Tom,
pool.
but I also have not seen Minority Report. I'm just guessing.
Making reference to movies you haven't seen.
You've totally seen
Absolutely
Minority
have
Report.
not, no.
It's pretty accurate, to be fair. So, I mean, do pretty well off watching trailers.
I get a little taste from the internet. I pick up, I get a little sousant, enough of the movie to make references to the movie from other pop culture that references the movie without actually having to see it myself.
It's like me and The Godfather.
Yes, like you and The Godfather, which you should definitely watch. It's a very good film.
You should watch Minority Report.
I will.
Yeah, he's gonna make him an offer on the day of his daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
That famous line.
You're mushing two different lines together there, but
and what is this horse head doing in my bed? That was an iconic line delivery.
Yeah. Again, slightly wrong, but I feel as though you got enough of the point to pass.
And gee, this orange is delicious. I remember that being a good line as well.
And
Marlon Brando's best scene, that one.
Just a real orange Brando.
Did he play the horse?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was just a big overweight horse rolling around on set, which is actually not too far from the truth.
It's actually 86% accurate.
But you'd be forgiven for thinking that we're a movie podcast, but no, we actually talk about things that are happening in the world, and we extrapolate cultural references out from that. I'm wondering what the cultural reference is of Matthew Guy taking over the leadership of the Victorian Liberal Party. Oh, wait, it's a knife fight. It's a stab in the back. Julius Caesar, Shakespeare. And we've seen it before, but it's a good play. It's a great play.
I mean, heck, you don't even need like a pop cultural reference for this one here. It's just more, it's good to see that the state Liberal Party has just become the federal Labor Party of a decade ago hey, we had a guy, we don't like him. Stab, put someone else in charge. And then when that person's not doing what they like them to do, stab, and then bring the also previously stabbed guy back. And then we see what happens leading into an election.
They literally had a Matthew Guy, if you will. And so essentially what you're saying is Matthew Guy is the equivalent of White Power Bill in Arrested Development. Just comes in, does a bunch of stabbing.
Just stabbing people. Yep. Just stabbing people in. I mean, I suppose so.
Who is Matthew Guy? Just to remind me, is he the guy that lost the last election to Labor? Is that Matthew Guy?
The guy who lost devastatingly to Labor last time around. Let's get that guy back in. I think he's a good egg. I think he'll lead us all to a galloping victory. Surely.
Yeah. Also, the guy that was it the lobster dinner situation? Or was that a different
lobster with a mobster? Yes, lobster with a mobster, where he had dinner with a convicted mob person, something or other.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's rare for the Labor side to get a good rhyming tagline to dig at the opponent. That's normally the Liberal shtick. Like, that's their shtick. Yeah. All that kind of crap.
I love this. The LNP of New South Wales, or federal, It's like, you call that a corruption scandal, mate? What these Victorian LNPs can't even do a proper scandal. Gladys's boyfriend got a $5 million contract. And they're like, oh, what, he got a dinner out of it? Mate, that's hardly even counts as corruption. We all had dinner with mobsters.
And it was just
they're the chief donors of our campaigns.
Yeah, it's a lobster dinner. Call me when it's like a several $1,000 bottle of Grange, mate.
Call me when it's a box of truffles.
So pretty soon after our episode went live this previous week, the Victorian Liberal Party met. They rolled Michael O'Brien, despite the fact that I think the day before he said, no, I have full support of the party.
Full support of my party.
And then they had the spill, and he didn't even contest it. Like, he didn't even do a, like, all right, show of hands for me, show of hands for the other guy. He was like, oh, well, by the very fact that you're having this spill, you can't fire me, I quit. And then I guess it just became a decision as to who replaced him.
I feel bad for Michael O'Brien. It seems like no one wants to sit with him at the lunchroom table. He's just a lonely kid. He's like, well, you guys don't want to be my friends? I don't want to be your friends. I'm going to play Foursquare by myself against the wall.
And I just
it's just as fun as playing with people. Whatever, I just love
seeing in the, like, you know, in the reporting and kind of like the political reporting discourse sort of around it, them talking about that, people haven't been too happy with Michael O'Brien because he hasn't been able, like, to land a criticism on, like, to land anything on Daniel Andrews, like, to try and, like, he hasn't, like, really got a win over him. I'm like, oh, maybe it's because for the most part the public health response has been good. Like, maybe, like, that's why I say for the most part, Adam, there's been some colossal fuck ups, but it's just the thing of, oh, well, maybe there wasn't heaps to land. Like,
arguably,
despite the News Corp propaganda mill churning out Dictator Dan headlines, by using ink by the barrel to shit on Dan Andrews, apparently they haven't found anything to ping him with. But
I don't see why they get Alan Jones to lead the Liberal Party.
Don't give him any ideas, Adam.
Mate. Yeah.
I just love that they're like, this guy isn't charismatic enough. We've got a generic white guy. You know what we'll replace him with? Another middle-aged generic white guy with 2 first names for names. Matthew Guy.
With an even blander name.
What just call him Bob Bread? Just Ted Whiteman.
Last week I was like, I'm pretty sure they're both just generic Melbourne University educated, like, that sort of class of individual. I don't know whether they've been to that, but
my father's a QC. Do you even know who I am? I'm imagining. Now, I'm just putting things together. I don't know. It's not an actual quote as far as I'm aware, but
the thing I want to know though is, since Michael O'Brien didn't contest, like, he just kind of it was just like, no, he didn't challenge it. He just let it happen, and they picked who would replace him, I suppose. I haven't seen much out of Tim Smith. So does that mean that Tim Smith put his hat in the ring? Because if so, I really wanted to get put your donut dicks out for Tim Smith trending, because he didn't win.
For those people who
explain
don't know who Tim Smith
explain
is,
the donut dicks.
Over the course of the first few lockdowns last year, as we were all chasing quote unquote donut days of having either 0 cases or 0 deaths, all that sort of stuff. So on, like, we'd have double donut days when it's like, zeros across the board kind of thing. And people celebrating, people would, like, post photos of getting donuts, and just donut day became a thing. And Tim Smith, ever the genius, if you can hear my sarcasm, thought he'd try to use that to land a blow on Dan Andrews by saying, oh, well, having donuts to celebrate the 800 dead, that the Labor government, et cetera, that kind of crap. And he posted a photo of 4 donuts arranged with, 2 of the donuts, one above the other, kind of like an 8, and then 2 donuts afterwards to try and show 800. But it just really looked like a huge dick made out of donuts. So, Tim Donut Dick Smith is how we should know him.
Good.
Did he throw his hat into the ring? Is that been confirmed?
He was one of the ones who resigned from shadow cabinet or whatever, which I thought you have to do to be able to challenge for the leadership.
It's the dumb thing. If you're going to knife someone, resign your position first. You
Yeah.
can't be
Don't be
in a
dick about
position
it.
of power.
Don't be
Yeah,
donut
exactly.
dick about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big cinnamony donut dick.
Obviously,
now, refresh my
Matthew Guy
memory.
now.
Tim Smith was the one who put out the assassination hit cards on members of the government. Was that Tim Smith?
Fuck, was it?
Oh, I think it might have been.
Sorry,
look,
you were about to say
yeah.
something, Adam? I'll look that up.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I mean, referring to Matthew Guy, obviously, new leader, new party, new policies, new direction. So we can expect many different things to come, is what I would be thinking.
It's not your granddad's
no,
Liberal Party. It's more your elderly father's Liberal Party now.
Yeah, it's
here we go.
There's nothing's changed.
Liberal MP denies his catch and kill cards incite violence. This is the story from October last year. Victorian Liberal MP and a fellow who might be missing several chromosomes, Tim Smith, denies he is inciting followers to violence with his latest. I'm just reading the article. His latest onslaught on the Andrews government. No, that wasn't in the article. That was an addition. In which he imitates an American military campaign tactic used against Iraq's Saddam Hussein. So they had cards, and on each one of the cards, there was
like a playing card.
Playing card. So there's one, Dan Andrews, the Ace of Spades. Another one was Jenny McCarkos, and she's got an ex through her, who was a former health minister on the state level. Basically saying like these people are targets.
Yeah.
Of a whatever you want to say, some sort of political target. Certainly not kill targets, but just
yes, as I recall,
fun political targets.
I have one of the FBI most wanted playing cards decks from like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, and the purpose was, these were, and similar to the Iraq ones, these were for people to use so as you're constantly looking at the faces of people you're wanting to capture. Yeah. So yeah, there's a bit of there's malicious intent, I'd argue.
Smith, nice guy.
What a great guy. Shame he didn't get the leadership. But he can focus on finding all those chromosomes he lost.
But look, I'm sure they'll now go from strength to strength and actually be able to mount an effective opposition. Oh wait, no, they won't, because their party is a disorganized piece of trash. So more of the same.
Fine with it. I'm totally fine with the state LNP in Victoria
being incompetent,
just being a bag of mops, just dumb as a box of hair. Just like it really is, just like a bunch of guys in a canoe, just like bailing it out and but just have no idea how to paddle. It's fantastic. It is the kind of ineptitude in government that it's rare to come across that it works out in your benefit. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine like the graphic designer that Tim Smith employed, just to be like, okay, so what do you want, Tim? I'd like you to.
So you just picked us up on Pfizer. So here to do some graphic design work at bargain basement rates. What do you need, Tim?
Oh, just cards that basically communicate that we want to capture or kill members of the state political apparatus.
Oh, there's like the Saddam Hussein cards in the.
Yeah, exactly. Bang on, nailed it.
So, and you're wanting to
give you $100
with the done. No questions asked. Thank you. I'm very desperate for work because of the casualization that your party is so fond of. So I'm happy to do that.
But so that happened in state politics this week. Meanwhile, the COVID infection numbers in Australia, I think we're past 2,000 a day now. Have we? I'm pretty sure we have.
We probably did the other day. I think
there'll be no donuts.
Like 1,600 and us having 450 or something like that. So
the only donuts that we'll be having will be sadness donuts, because we're depressed and we're just eating ourselves to death in isolation here.
I mean, if it's one thing that does make me feel better, like eating donuts.
It's honestly the perfect gift because happiness, donuts, sadness, donuts. Watching a mate's funeral, mate's dad's funeral online, donuts.
Donuts are appropriate for almost all scenarios.
Yep.
I struggle to think of a time when it would be inappropriate to be giving out donuts.
In possibly good news, though, I think that the death rate this outbreak is lower than it was previously. Like you look at the spikes and curves, you can see that perhaps the vaccination numbers that are occurring, even though we're only at sort of 40%, are having some sort of impact. There are still people dying by the sort of tens per day, but I guess maybe it won't be as bad as perhaps last lockdown. But if you listen to Elon on the right, apparently lockdowns don't work, so we may as well just let it rip and see what happens. Because I want to go to the pub.
I just have no patience. I was talking with my wife the other day. There's someone that we know that's reluctant to get the vaccine. And I was just kind of like, I'm done trying to convince people at this point that it's just like, this is the only way that we get out of this, is if people get vaccinated and we can try to scrape back some semblance of a normal-ish life if not all people are vaccinated. So like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to talk about side effects. I don't want to talk about blood clots. I don't want to talk about mRNA. I don't want to talk about any of this stuff. Like, either you have to get vaccinated or you just need to get the fuck out of my face. Like, I just can't. I have no energy left for like a good faith discussion and like trying to persuade people. It's just like, either you get vaccinated or you're a fucking selfish prick. Like, those are the options. I have no patience for anyone anymore. Like,
well, you're a person who genuinely medically is ill.
We're not talking about those people. Obviously not talking about those people, Tom. Obviously not talking about grandma who's 89 and has leukemia and can't get it for fucking immunosuppressed reasons. Obviously not who the fuck I'm talking about, Tom. But thanks for clarifying. I'm done debating people's fucking stupid. I'm sick of entertaining it, because someone's Gracie said, she was talking on the phone to someone. It said the vaccine debate. I was like, no, not a debate. One side. There are not two sides to this. One side, get a vaccine. Those are the only sides to this debate. Like, because as soon as you start speaking about it in those terms, it starts becoming like, well, this side has points. No, there is no other side. The side is get the vaccine, or maybe this is great. Maybe you're just an idiot and you love how things are, and this is how you want things to be forever. In which case,
but my fertility, George.
Fuck your fertility. Who wants to bring a child into this world at this stage? Fuck your fertility.
Fertility.
Bring children of men on. Bring it on.
George gestured wildly in that little gap of silence for those of you listening to this later.
Yeah, that wasn't a very audio medium way of communicating my feelings there. I'm just like,
it's a similar thing to climate change, right? It's just a thing of like, fucking no, this isn't a debate. This is what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Which implies we're going to do something about it. Not doing something about it isn't an option.
We're past.
We just have to do something.
I'm past the point of debating fucking CO2 levels in the atmosphere and what do we do? Look, it's snowing in winter, so therefore not global warming. It's like I'm past. I don't know about you guys. I've just massive fatigue with all of that. I'm past it. We need to just be talking about solutions. Adam.
I can't tell, George, honestly, from the way you're communicating. I've got no idea. It's not coming across. But look, let me tell you this. You will be happy to know that the federal government is doing something about the pandemic. And we can see here they were approached in June 2020 by Pfizer.
June 2020.
2020, that's last year.
2020.
Previous.
We were a good 3-4 months into sort of the pandemic, really locking down a lot of places in the world. So they'd been hard at research and working on getting vaccines across. So it seems like, that'd be the time that, all right, we've got to get this sorted.
So they approached Minister Hunt, who's been the health minister for the last couple of years. They wanted a direct meeting with him. But Mr. Hunt only said he take that meeting. They came to him. He didn't even have to do any. Wow. There was no tender. They were just like, we'll give you a fucking vaccine. And we'll sort out numbers. No. And let me just see if he took the meeting. And no, they didn't take the meeting.
Did they eventually take the meeting?
They sent some lower level government functionary to the meeting, and so Pfizer was like, "Well, if you're not sending your top people, we're not going to send our top people." And so it just kind of got lost in bureaucracy for
a bunch of interns just sitting around a table being like, you watching
hi.
Game of Thrones?
I have seen Game of
It's like,
Thrones.
yeah,
The last season, honestly, loved it until the last season. Last season was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
You know, like I felt like they were kind of rushed. You know what I mean? They didn't wrap up all the characters the way that there was. And Bran Stark as the king. I was just like, meh, okay, didn't really buy it. Anyway, you guys want some vaccines, or we got like millions of them?
Yeah.
We're good.
Like, you know, we're taking orders and we can hook you up. I'm like, nah, we're right, mate. We're right.
Cool.
Australia, how good's Australia?
Cool. Well, look, it has been fun meeting you. I guess we'll see you in November when you realize this is actually a problem and you want to order some vaccines from us. Cool. See you in November. Fuckity, bye.
So it turns out we've got a massive shortage of Pfizer now in this day and age. So
who could have foreseen?
Who could have foreseen it?
I just don't understand. You're right, Tom. I didn't even think about that aspect of it. Where it's like it's June, so we locked down everything like mid-March. So it's April, May, June.
And we'd been coming out of lockdowns. Well, from Melbourne's perspective, we'd been coming out of our first one and we were on, a little bit after that, July-ish was when we hit turbo lockdown.
It is 12,
case numbers skyrocketing.
12 to 14 weeks after this crisis has kicked off. And the health minister, Greg Hunt, doesn't take a meeting with one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world that is proposing a vaccine.
To produce the vaccine, yeah.
I just don't like what else could possibly be you're the health minister. What the fuck?
Buy the book.
Is there anything else that you should have been doing at that? What the fuck was he doing? I'd love to go back through his calendar. And actually, it's just like, it just says Greg Hunt, 97 minutes of personal time in his calendar. I don't know what that means. Let's look at his browser history.
Yeah, it just says Greggy time.
and then a wink emoji. Yep. I don't know what that means. What the fuck else could have been more important in June of 2020 than taking a meeting with Pfizer?
Oh, finding $60 billion behind the couch, surely.
I mean, look, under normal circumstances, like getting a secretary from a department or members of the public service to deal with this kind of thing would be probably the dumb thing. But
generally,
in this case,
you're not going through a once-in-a-generation pandemic, which requires the health minister to have some sort of fucking input as to what's happening.
Yeah, there's this thing called, in a crisis, we ask for leadership, and sometimes that may circumvent certain avenues of government bureaucracy. Yes. It's literally like an episode of Utopia. Literally, has probably cost hundreds of lives potentially.
That's what it made me
because
think
of that government.
Where they go to the PM's office. There's an episode of Utopia where Celia Parkwa, she's like the number 2 in the Department of Infrastructure, goes to the PM's office to interview for a role, and they're just like, sorry, why are you here again? She's like, I'm meeting the PM. You guys asked me to come. And they're like, great. Yeah. No worries. Just like 15 minutes. Just like hang out. Did you want a coffee? And she's like, yeah, I'd love a coffee. And then no one ever brings her a coffee. And it's just like 5-6 times people keep coming and just being like, sorry, why are you here again? She's like, I'm here they asked me to come.
I'm here for the interview.
I'm here for the interview. They asked me to come in for an interview. They're like, oh yeah, no worries. Sit down 15 minutes. Did you want a coffee? And she's like, still yes. It happens 5 or 6 times. That is how I imagine this actually fucking rolled out. That was a literal episode from Utopia, and it seems like that's how the actual federal government runs. Yeah. It's just a bunch of aides running around with fucking iPads and clipboards asking people if they want coffee.
There is always an episode of Utopia for everything, I feel.
Yes.
As what happens in government. And it just seems like this, because we're finding out about this a year later, and it seems like this was step 1 of the perfect vaccine storm, right? Because this, like them putting off that meeting till sometime in August, which was after the UK and the US had jumped on getting Pfizer deals and all that sort of stuff, resulted, as Adam said, into like a massive Pfizer shortage that we're still dealing with. And that wouldn't have been as much of a problem had they not fucking shafted the communication around AstraZeneca. Right? Because whilst, yes, there was the blood clots thing being circulated around, despite how incredibly minute those odds are, when it was all news to people in our age bracket that we could even get it. That it was suddenly like, oh, what? You mean I could have gone to get AstraZeneca this entire time? Well,
Yes.
fuck. Then we booked appointments straight away and fucking got it, which we would have gotten on earlier had that messaging been clear, and had we not scaremongered ourselves into, like, well, them scaremongering us, and then also the media scaremongering us into believing that that there's a bad one and a good one that we passed on.
Also, Atagi kind of like fucked it as well. As George said, like when we commented on it at the time, we're like, why have you made this decision? And it was basically a risk assessment that was like, oh, the odds of you getting a blood clot probably don't outweigh the risk of getting sick from COVID. But of course, that was like a month prior to Delta.
And then the thing is, when COVID starts circulating, turns out the odds are much, much better for you if you take the vaccine. Yeah, it's like just comically inept. But I've heard a few theories as to why this was. So the AstraZeneca vaccine, they were really big on the AstraZeneca vaccine. They're saying, no, we want to manufacture it locally. It's locally manufactured, the AstraZeneca, and so it's much, much better because it's locally manufactured, which is all true. Here in Australia, it is manufactured by pharmaceutical darling of the ASX, CSL. The problem with that is that politicians like Dave Sharma and others happened to go ahead and buy large quantities of CSL shares right before this announcement was made. So we'll talk about it so Crikey's got this article from, so he made purchases of Afterpay and Zip, buy now, pay later solutions.
Seems like a savvy guy.
Really savvy investor.
Just really good investor. Buying Qantas shares.
He's got his fingers on the pulse.
Right before the airline assistance package was announced by his government, a member of the LNP, and one of the shares that he purchased was CSL. Right before this, sort of whole of government, response saying we're going to use these vaccines. This has been a story
that's been revolving for the last couple of months. Is that they all did have shares in big pharma, as it were. But yeah, I mean, Sharma has said in response to the article, I don't have any, I'm just a backbencher. I don't have any exposure to
I don't hear anything.
Contracts.
Nobody tells me nothing.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
I have no fucking idea what's going on in my own government. I had no idea that they were going to,
Parliament House
give a multi-billion-dollar fucking contract to a local company that I just happened to buy thousands of dollars worth of blue chips. That's how you buy blue chip shares, right? You just buy tens of thousands of dollars of them all at the same time, apropos of fucking nothing. And then your government that you're partially in charge of puts a deal together shortly thereafter with that same company. That's good government. That's prudent financial management of my own financial affairs.
Just a good guess. If Parliament House was a boat, it would sink within 20 seconds.
By now.
That'd have stopped it.
Legitimately.
But also, secondly, it is the leakiest boat that it ever was leaking.
I just can't understand.
There's no secrecy in that place.
So it makes sense that the LNP government would be going really hard on AstraZeneca if there are members of that government that are invested in production of AstraZeneca vaccines here in Australia with CSL. It stands to reason. The thing that I don't understand is, why is this not illegal? Why is it not for people who've worked at a public company, which I think all three of us have at some point, there are trading periods where you can only buy or sell stock of the company that you work for during these periods, once information about that company has been released to the public at large. Your financial earnings reports.
Once all those reports have been declared to the ASX and all that sort of stuff. So once anything, for the most part, there's still it's bits and bobs there, but once sort of anything that you would have had an advantage knowing working for the company is now public knowledge, is a period that you're allowed to actually buy and sell stocks in the company you work for.
Yeah, they're called blackout periods. It's like from, say we release our financials on 30 June, from 1st of July to the 29th of July, you can buy or sell stocks. If you want to do it outside of those periods, you need to get a written permission from a person in finance at the company, and it needs to be for XYZ reasons. There are stringent controls. It's called insider trading. If you do that based on insider knowledge, and you work for a private company in the public sector, you go to jail if you do something like that. But for some reason, if you're a member of parliament, then it's just you being a brilliant businessman. What a brilliant coincidence. Yeah. How brilliant this Dave Sharma guy must be. What a genius. Warren Buffett should get this fucking guy on staff. He's such a fucking, fucking Nostradamus over here.
The reason is that the Constitution was developed in 1901 and they haven't got to a point where they could possibly update it. There is Section 44, which is
in 1901. They had corruption in 1901. I don't think we fucking invented it.
Yeah, but it was everyone was on the same side because they were all white old men who was jerking
Whereas
each other off around the table.
no old white men to be seen.
Yeah. Yeah,
but there is Section 44 of the Constitution which talks about a pecuniary interest, but that's more if you're like, I think, working for a company that has dealings with the government.
Yeah,
but
pecuniary interest.
What they do is they
do
the deal in the government, and then they leave the government and then work in the company. That's how they do that now.
Yes,
they don't do both at the same time. They're not stupid.
Yeah, they unitask their corruption now. They don't multitask. That'd be crazy. This way of doing things is much better. So I don't know if it was just laziness or what exactly it was that prevented Greg Hunt from attending this meeting, but it really does not pass the sniff test. Like, it's just another on a large Jenga tower of fucking comical ineptitude from this government that's gonna come crashing down at some point. I guess it's Labor's to fuck up at this point. Like, if you haven't got enough things to point at and go, look, the other side's fucking fucked. Hey, if you don't have enough examples of that by now as Labor for you to win, then you don't deserve to govern. You too are completely inept.
The thing is, their big
on the coalition to win the next election.
Their big problem, Labor's big problem, is sure they have a giant pile of fuck ups to use to be like, look how shit they are, and then everyone's like, cool. So what are you gonna do? Do you have a stance on climate change?
Could burn the building down.
Yeah, set the building on fire.
Could set the building on fire. Yeah, I think the entire Labor, like there was what was it? I think it was Sean McAuliffe posted something like Labor unsure how they're going to fuck. No, it was Batuta Advocate posted Labor unsure how they're going to fuck this up for themselves, and it was like showed a poll where Labor was in the lead for the first time in X amount of years, and they're like, oh, no, we're really worried. How are we going to fuck this up? We don't know how we're going to fuck this up. We have to fuck it up.
They also did something similar of like, breaking Labor dangerously close to having a policy. Like, oh, thank fuck. Whew, that was a close one.
Well, they got burnt on having policy these last elections, so they decided that no policies and just general inflammatory commentary is a better way to go about it.
Yeah, that's what's funny. They got burnt on having a policy that people didn't like, so their answer is to, well, I guess we'll just have no policies then. That's the lesson. People.
Should we make policies that people don't that people actually like? Shut up! Get out of here! Fuck! Get out of here! You idiot!
We maybe have improved the messaging so as people wouldn't have been super afraid of what we were suggesting.
Boo, get out of here! You suck. Boo. Much better.
The other thing that I think, like, in terms of the vaccines, like the thing that you can see plain as day as well, not just whether it be shares or whatever else. The whole concept with AstraZeneca, and the other thing they were pushing was the UQ vaccine, which didn't end up working. Still being researched at this time, was that it's all ties in with the government's Aussie ingenuity, homegrown tech. My bloody what was the thing they were talking about last election? Like basically investing in Aussie, pharmaceuticals and technology, which goes in line with what they're trying to achieve. So basically, if AstraZeneca worked out, which it did, but if the UQ had worked out, they would have had a selling point to get them to the next election. So they weren't even thinking about the public health result. This is my take. It wasn't about the public health result. It wasn't about whether or not they had shares. It was just, can we spin this in a way that will win us the next election and somehow boost the economy, because that's somehow important. Because that's all they were talking about last year was whether or not the economy is going to recover.
I agree with you. I don't think it was necessarily like overt corruption, like dollar signs on a canvas bag, kind of like, rob, that. I don't think it was that. I think it was just they were blinded to other possibilities because they had their eyes set on the prize, and the prize wasn't dealing with the pandemic. The prize was winning the next election, getting the economy chugging along so they could win the next election. And I think also like having personal financial interests in the case of Dave Sharma, in the case of like particular members, like also just kind of like helped usher along all of those. It was all part of the milieu that allowed these things to just kind of get like pushed through without much of a second thought. Which is fine, I guess, if you're a backbencher to be like, oh, I'm just a silly old backbencher. I don't really control anything. I don't even know what's going on. But if you're Greg Hunt, if you're the health minister during a pandemic, like it should be all hands on deck. You know what I mean? Like that is the one time where literally everyone gives a shit about what the health minister is doing every second of the day. And it just seems like they were just asleep at the wheel. Do you think that, say we're giving the most charitable possible explanation to the LNP government, do you think that if Greg Hunt had attended this meeting, do you think that we would have had Pfizer sooner, or is it just kind of like unknowable? It's hard to prove the negative, right? Like,
well, I guess it's hard to prove a negative, but I mean, like, I reckon, I reckon they would have gotten some sort of deal out of it, surely. I mean, like, unless it was that comically like guided, as we've talked about, that it was all like, oh no, well, all we care about is our own vested interests and blah, blah, like, unless they're like consciously, openly being like, oh well, no, Sharma's got shares in these guys or whatever, we should do this. No, they would have taken an allocation of a vaccine. Surely.
I struggle to think of a scenario where you meet with executives so much sooner and a deal is done so much sooner, and we still get the actual supply that much later in the process, when other countries, like we know, like Singapore and other countries were getting Pfizer significantly earlier than we were. I struggle to think of a scenario where you could do a deal nearly 6 months earlier and still get the same result. I think that strains credibility.
Yeah, extremely.
I think the thing that, I don't know, the question I had around it was like Pfizer wanted the government to sign a confidentiality agreement for the meeting, and which they weren't willing to do on the initial.
And they're like, have you seen the amount of messy bitches that live in our backbench? This parliament's like a sieve. There's no way that we could commit to an NDA. I'm tweeting about this right now.
I was going to say more like, excuse me, we are the Scott Morrison coalition government, and we are all about open and above board communication. So no NDA.
Transparency is the name of the game, mate. So, my name isn't Gregory Hunt.
Well,
speaking of
transparency.
Transparency. Well, no, I was going to say, speaking of just government ineptitude, corruption scandals, and coronavirus, did you guys see today's or anything of today's press conference with Gadys Berejiklian, the New South Wales Premier?
Her last one? She's not doing it
her
anymore.
Last one.
She goes, thanks very much, guys. It's going to get worse before it gets better, and we'll see you on the other side of this. Okay, thanks. Bye. Have fun. Bye. Not doing this anymore. Bye.
Her last daily press conference. Obviously she hasn't ruled out doing future press conferences, but they at least won't be the daily 11 a.m. ones. But the way it ended was quite amazing. Where it ended 20 to 30 minutes early, following journalists asking her questions such as, are you expecting to be giving further evidence to ICAC, the Independent Commission Against Corruption, or are you going into hiding? Is that why you are dropping these press conferences?
That's a good look.
And her answers to both were like, no, and this interview is over, and then left. What a great look. That tickled me. I was like, you can't, like, seriously, at least try to look good at this.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, we've talked about it on the show before, but there are some question marks over whether Gadys Berejiklian assisted her secret boyfriend at the time in obtaining a multi-million-dollar contract. It's
upgrading the shooters building, wasn't it? We talked about it a few weeks ago. Yeah, a shooting club.
And basically, assisting in the process of getting that grant, which had failed. The the sort of means testing and analysis, and then the means testing and analysis was rewritten to give a positive value, and then
she was the treasurer at the time,
and she was the treasurer at the time, and sort of pushed it. The implication is that she sort of corruptly pushed it through on his behalf. And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when it came up. One of the journalists in the press conference mentioned, like, "Hey, what's this? Is it weird that you helped your boyfriend with his contract, and do you think that's corrupt?" And she's like, "No, that's respect the press conference." Like, I'm not talking about that. Respect the presser. Just got real mad about it. Shut it the fuck down.
This interview is over.
Yeah.
And off she goes.
Yeah. So, and then she's since announced that, like, I know we projected that it's going to get worse before it gets better. The peak of the cases is meant to be in October. The state's on fire. But we're not going to do daily press briefings anymore because I don't like answering questions that make me feel uncomfortable, and I like to take an early lunch. So it's 11:30 lunch. So I'm just not going to do these anymore. We're just going to have some bureaucrat do it via Zoom. Okay, guys? Cool. See you never. Yeah. Accountability what?
Bye.
Huh? Sorry, I can't hear you. Bye. Peace.
Yes. But yes, Adam, I just wanted to bring that up because it happened today and it was incredibly delicious. But yes, transparency.
Oh, and speaking of transparency, so Scott Morrison is a man who learns from his mistakes. He obviously went to Hawaii.
What is this setup? Where are you going with this? I know I have to rundown, but
he went to Hawaii, and during the bushfire crisis, and he's obviously, as far as I'm aware, he took in that advice, learned from his mistakes, and he's decided not to do any unsolicited travel, which might be not in the national interest or perceived to be potentially selfish. And he's decided that that's obviously not going to happen. But there is this trip.
No, I don't know. I think that's it. I think that's the end of that story. It's just he's not going to do any unsolicited, unnecessary travel in solidarity.
There was this trip though he took to
I don't
New
think
South
so.
Wales.
No, it doesn't ring any bells.
Last week.
I mean, he lives in New South Wales, Adam. What do you expect? He lives in New South Wales.
He's locked down in Canberra, Tom, because of health orders and stuff.
Yeah, the Prime Minister has been stuck in the building that's built for the Prime Minister to be living in.
I think it'd be great if there was some sort of building where you could put the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's family, and they could all live in that building together. Some sort of lodge, for example.
Lodging facility?
Some sort of lodging. I don't know what you'd call it. But you put the Prime Minister and his family there in their house, and then that way they could all live together and be in the same place. I don't think anything like that.
What about the summer home? What about the Kirribilli house, the summer home of the Prime Minister?
No, it doesn't really
It's got to try and get to New South Wales to be able to live there. No, basically, Scott Morrison took a trip on Father's Day, or around the Father's Day weekend, to go to Sydney, see the family, and then come back.
Yeah, it's a bit galling. It pissed me
most
off.
of the population in Australia is currently sitting in their house, not able to see their fathers.
Yeah, not loving it. The fact that we were able to have 10 people at my dad's funeral and we had to live stream it, didn't love that, but we did it because that was the law, and the law allegedly applies equally to all of us. But turns out,
that's the thing, though.
not ScoMo gets to do whatever the fuck he likes.
Well, that's the thing. The law actually lets him do this. That's what the interesting part was, in that, like, he wasn't granted an exemption to enter Sydney. Sydney has no qualms of people coming in from Canberra, and on return to Canberra, he had to do like regular testing or a little bit of quarantine. But he's an essential worker, you guys, as a politician. Which, yeah, sure, arguably, I'd say a politician is an essential worker in a crisis, particularly probably the leader. But it's the fact that, traveling to and from different spots. Like, Canberra's going through its first, like, proper lockdown since the early days of the pandemic. So, hopping into Rona Central and then coming back, even if you're an essential worker, if you don't have to go to Rona Central for your work, don't go. Like, yes, you're allowed to come back in, but fucking...
But he wanted to be a good dad for Father's Day. Visit the girls.
Yeah,
Mate, we had to go and make a curry.
Go see Jenny.
Go see Jenny and the girls.
And you know,
Me and
he
the
thought about
girls.
it economically, and you know, he drove his own car there, obviously, and took a commercial flight. Oh wait, no, I'm just reading this. No, he chartered an RAAF
Private
private
jet,
flight
bitch.
at
Like a
taxpayers'
G6.
expense.
Like a
At
G6.
taxpayers' expense to go
Mm.
do that personal
They
thing.
see me
great.
He didn't take the
rolling.
tax.
They hate
That's the
and
thing that probably galls me. It wasn't a trip. It wasn't a work trip that you
No.
could justify you're using the taxpayers' money. No, he decided to go spend some family time and then spend how many $100,000 for the jet? Probably would be, yeah, it'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars for the jet fuel and the
over
staff.
$100,000 it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
I
It's one thing
reckon-
A bus.
to be like you had to go to Sydney for work, and then it's Sunday. It happens to be Father's Day. You had lunch with your family, but just to be like, oh no, I can travel back to see my family on Father's Day. Like we can't.
Yes.
I
Exactly.
can't. We can't, and it's irresponsible for you to do so anyway, even though you legally can.
The amount of time that I didn't get to spend with my dad in his final months because we were all in lockdowns. I'm gonna have feelings about that for the rest of my life. Is that I really didn't get to spend until it was terminally ill, critical in the hospital, end of life. I didn't get to be there for the last 18 months on and off. And so it's could you imagine Bronwyn Bishop being like, guys, I just took a helicopter. It was like $5,000. She'd be spewing. All these people, regular real people. Yeah, regular real people that, have had to make real sacrifices are just spewing when they see this. And if it's not illegal, then it should be. I've got a theory, and I'd like to know what you guys think about this. That these people don't actually want to be, all these leadership spills and, all this sort of stuff, fighting for the leadership in some sort of Shakespearean, drama kind of, to be the guy in charge. I don't think they actually like governing. I don't think Gadys Berejiklian actually likes the act of governing. I think she likes the feeling of power of being in charge. Same with Scott Morrison.
Yeah.
It is not about, because I don't want to do the icky part of getting up for daily. People ask me hard questions and make me feel bad because of all the corruption I may or may not have done. I don't like that part. I'm just going to not do that. But when it comes to going and visiting my kids on Father's Day, yeah, I'll spend hundreds of, $100,000 of taxpayer money in order to do that. Because they don't like governing. They like being in charge. They like being the feeling that power gives them.
Well, and they probably also like the very high salary, and
they could get higher salaries elsewhere.
However long you have to be prime minister, and then as soon as you're old, you get how much forever?
Yeah,
Isn't that a thing?
Even the prime minister, specifically gets $500,000 a year, right? And he's the most highly paid. He or she is the most highly paid, and then they get some sort of pension ongoing. It's generous, but it's not. There are lots of jobs in the private sector where you would be paid significantly more than that to do much less work, right? If you were Christopher Pine, who works in government, and then now goes, what does he work for? Some defense contractor or something? Or
he's defense contractor now, I think.
Yeah, some think tank. I guarantee you, he is making orders of magnitude more than he was making as a government minister.
But he wouldn't have got that without being in government. That's the thing. People go to government, they get a position in government, and then they're set for a career path. They take whatever job they want. They could consult. There's numerous opportunities to then just, after you've been in government, to then triple your salary. Basically, it's a circle jerk, basically.
I don't deny that money is definitely a part of it, but you look at Malcolm Turnbull. Malcolm Turnbull was super rich off his time at Goldman Sachs. He did not need to make additional money going into politics, right? You look at Clive Palmer. Clive Palmer was a billionaire before he ever tried to be a politician. I think for a lot of these people, it's not necessarily the money. It's the ego. It's the power trip of being the one who gets to make the rules.
Ego is a big thing.
I think, it'd be a combination of all of it, because yes, you can earn more in the private sector, depending where you're going or whatever like that. But to be oh no, I'll claw my way up just to be the leader for that determined amount of time to have the power. And then Tony Abbott allegedly sliding away with $300K a year after getting ousted in 2015. I'd love 300k a year and not having to do any more work.
Sure.
It's only really been since John Howard that the pensions for retired prime ministers have gone crazy. Like, I'm pretty
Funny
sure
that.
Keating and before it wasn't that crazy, but after Howard,
This
they
article
went
talks about
ballistic.
like Keating is pocketing around 140k a year.
Yeah,
Mm.
but it tripled, right? With
Yeah.
prime ministers subsequent to that, and they were in power for a fraction of the time.
So,
So,
just to circle back on that point I made about Christopher Pyne. So he retired from politics at the 2019 Australian federal election. In June of that year, he was appointed as an industry professor at the University of South Australia. And in the same month, he also started a new defence industry consulting job, which prompted a Senate investigation into a potential breach of ministerial standards. So it's like, within months of no longer being a minister for Parliament, they're involved directly in private industry, leveraging their
Yeah, but
contacts in government, right?
they've sorted that out prior to leaving. Like, he
Oh,
he
of
knew
course.
when he quit politics that was coming.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Um,
You retire knowing you're going to get get into
Yeah.
the revolving door and line up some cushy industry
Yeah.
job but so clearly for these people, like,
It's
I,
ego.
I don't think
Ego.
money is the full answer. There's other ways to make money, right? I think it's ego and power, and it's
to
really
get
a shame.
to even
Yeah.
get started at branch level, you've
Yeah.
got to walk in there with a big swinging dick.
Yeah.
Like, because you've got to then get all the people, all the entrenched fucking, like, faction things happening in that particular branch. You've got to get them all on side, or you've got to have enough already money, influence, and power to stack that branch with people that are going to vote for you. You'll be like, oh yeah, they're just living in the local community, and it's like, no, they've literally just moved and
Well, there was
they're
a
registered
big
at that particular branch who will then vote for you.
there was a big
and
furor
so
this
go
week
forward.
with Senator Christina Keneally planning to run in a lower house. So she, former senator, now looking to run in a lower house seat. And they say, oh, why'd they choose Christina Keneally rather than this local, person on the ground who's, a refugee survivor and, a woman of color and has community ties, and it would have been a really good opportunity for diversity. Like, Anne Ali said, it's a huge failure and they can't do this. And I was like, mate, this is what being a political party is you get to choose, you get to stack things in your favor. If you want your guy in this particular seat, then you will move the levers of power to make sure it's this person and not that person. That is what party politics is pre-selecting your fucking guy to consolidate your power. You can't just have, just saying like, oh, they can't do this. I was like, and this is your party. Like, they absolutely can do this. This is what a party is pre-selecting the people that they like.
No wonder you come into politics with an ego, because a lot of people get in there with it being given to them on a silver platter. They haven't had to work for it. They haven't had to, do all the door knocking and that kind of thing. Some people have, but not everyone. Some of these people, as you said, Christina Keneally or whoever it may be, are literally just, oh, you want to be our candidate? Okay, well, you're going to be our candidate, and in you go.
Yeah, and I remember seeing an article, I think it was from Crikey a couple of years ago, where they talked about how the LNP would only put female ministers in marginal seats, not for any of the safe seats that were like safe Liberal seats. They go, okay, well, we're contesting this one over here. It's going to be a close fight. The female members will put into the firing line in those seats, but all of the male members that are in the boys' club will keep those guys for safe seats. And it's not a wonder that the LNP has so few women in its upper echelons as a result. If they're used for cannon fodder in marginal seats, as it's hardly surprising. But that is just the way that party rooms operate to a certain extent. Like, this is what working in any political party is that some people are going to get preferential treatment and get parachuted in. And that's how the system works. Like,
see though that is how we get to issues like with dodgy deals and stuff happening at the top. where if that's how it's starting, if that's the grassroots level, like what makes you think that all of a sudden they get elected and then they all of a sudden become, voting Jesus or whatever? And,
that's what a party is. A party, people vote along party lines. People can say, oh, my local LNP member, he's a good guy. I've spoken to him or I saw him at the local fete or whatever. And he seems like a really good guy and he believes in climate change. But if you look at his voting record, it's exactly the same as George Christensen's and Cory Bernardi's and Tony Abbott's. And that's what being a party is there's organized machinery to consolidate power around this pole, the LNP, and that pole being Labor. That's what it is. Yeah. So unless you're going to run a shitload of independents and everyone all does their own research and does their own thing, and we're all doing democracy and renegotiating, supply of the government on the fly. Every time a bill gets passed, everyone goes in and negotiates every single thing, which would be
what happens in Italy or Europe. In Europe,
right.
Basically,
yeah. In Greece, they've got 5 different parties, and guess what? It's a fucking mess. Like nothing ever gets done. So unless you want to do that every time there's like a regular government funding bill that comes through, like you need parties to have some sort of structure in place to guarantee consistency. But I don't know. I think it's naive to think that it works otherwise. Much as I'd love the independent movement to, flourish.
Andrew Wilkie, no punkies.
Lots the punky machines.
But I guess to link back though to the start of this story, Scott Morrison called these criticisms about this travel for Father's Day a really cheap shot. And I would say, fuck you, Scott Morrison, because just because, like, it's a thing of like he says, I'm allowed to do it. He listed all the things that I said earlier, that he didn't break any rules doing this trip. Rules. But just because you're allowed to do it doesn't mean it's right.
Yes.
And fuck you. We all haven't seen our families as much as we'd like. And eat shit, you fucking dickhead. I yield my time. Adam, go.
George, do you think Tom has gotten more spicy since the pandemic?
Oh, 100%.
Like, where do you think his spice ranking is at this stage?
I definitely think that Tom definitely has a much more eat the rich attitude than he used to.
I definitely do.
I agree. It doesn't pass the pub test, which we can't do because no one's allowed to go to the pub.
Well, I just finished a beer, so it doesn't pass my test. Eat my entire ass, ScoMo.
I don't know how to segue between that and the next story.
It's hard to segue away from eat my asshole. Remember when Tom was the measured one? He'd done the journalism degree. He was like, guys, I don't know. We can't say these things online. It's going to blow back on us. I don't know.
Like, fuck you.
Excuse me.
Smash cut to eat my entire asshole, Scott Morrison.
Yeah. Me telling Scott Morrison to eat my entire ass isn't defamation. So I still stand by my be careful what you say.
This is true. I'm asking questions.
It's a request, not a statement.
Wouldst thou?
Yes. Yeah. It's a demand. You want to do some unsolicited travel, ScoMo? You just want to travel willy-nilly to wherever you want? Come to Melbourne. I'll be at Tullamarine. I'll be bent over, ready for you. Mate, you can just go to Browntown.
I've got an arsehole with your name on it.
Call me Limp Bizkit, because my chocolate starfish will be ready to roll. Tongue punch my fart box, you absolute. How's that for spicy?
It's so spicy. I can't even taste anything anymore.
I hope you didn't.
I'll just be tasting shit because I will have had the most awful diet leading up to this day. It will be fucking nothing but habaneros and beans.
Okay.
All right.
And we'll send that request to the Prime Minister, and he won't look at it, and it'll go to his cabinet, and then it'll circle around, and then they'll get back to you.
But you will get a lower level bureaucrat to come and eat your asshole. The minister won't do it himself, but you will get a public servant who will dutifully come for $80,000 a year plus 15% super and come and eat your asshole. So look, that's a result as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you know what? I'll take it.
So our next, I don't know how to. I thought I was going to wrap it up now. The next story we've got is an interesting one, which regards, I guess, whether or not if you're commenting on an online article on Facebook, if you're commenting on Facebook with on an article that's been posted by a publisher, whether or not you, as the individual, going, I don't agree with Tom's statement about eating the asshole of the Prime Minister. That's insensitive. Wait, no, the Prime Minister eating your asshole.
Excuse me, he can eat my asshole. Thank you
Oh,
very much.
sorry.
To have me eat your asshole is a privilege, and he could wish.
So if me making a comment about that means that I am responsible for that comment, I am publishing the comment, and I should be responsible for anything that is said in that comment, or is it the responsibility of ABC News, for instance, who it's on their page, it's their
deal
article,
with the asshole eating comments.
To deal with the asshole eating comments.
Ida Buttrose, head of the ABC, is just kind of looking at this, going, "What the fuck is going? What the fuck is going on in here?"
We are posting a story about how safe injection rooms are doing wonders for dropping drug fatalities, and why are people talking about eating someone's asshole? What? Yeah. How does this even work?
Need to get Scott on the blower and tell him about this. I don't think he'll be impressed.
So there's
take those comments down before they cut our funding even more.
So there's a defamation case happening at the moment in the New South Wales Supreme Court, I believe.
I think it was taken to the New South Wales Supreme Court, but it relates, I think, to
Northern Territory.
To the Northern Territory,
the Dondale thing, right? Where Dylan Voller is the individual that's engaging in the lawsuit. He was filmed being shackled to a chair wearing a spit hood as a part of ABC's Four Corners program.
And which was talking about the brutality that's occurring in some of these Northern Territory.
Yeah, in youth detention in the Northern Territory,
So as a part of, I don't know how it quite relates in, but as a part of that lawsuit, there was a situation where people were asking, well, the issue was raised whether or not, as a comment section, is the publisher responsible for people, third parties, just
some of the defamatory comments that were being that are being challenged were posted in the comments section of a Facebook post from places like The Australian and all that sort of stuff. So it was very fascinating sort of to see, because it's the whole what's a publisher kind of thing, right? Which has been a huge sort of point of contention legally over the past few years, as search engines and social media platforms and all that sort of stuff have been evolving. But the High Court ruled that the case can continue, essentially. It's just sort of that the media outlets trying to get it sort of thrown out by saying no, it's Beryl from Caroline Springs posting on the page. It's they typed and hit enter on the defamatory comment, but the High Court seems to think, yes, they did do that, but it's then published on your Facebook platform, which you have moderation control over. So you have published that content. And it's just an interesting result, because it's kind of I kind of agree with them. I was thinking about it on this. It's an interesting kind of avenue on that. While, yes, so a journalist for The Australian or something like that hasn't written these comments and allegedly defamed a person, but it'd be the same as though, effectively it's saying that the Facebook comments are akin to a letter to the editor. Because I remember, when we were talking about this off air in our little text chat, Adam, I think it was you, said, "Geez, if you're that if you're pissed off about something, write a letter to the damn editor." And it's that's kind of what Facebook comments really are in this day and age. It's just in real time, and
the difference
before
is
anyone can moderate it, right?
Yeah, so the difference is if you send a letter to the editor, they read it and then put it in the bin most of the time.
Well,
they're
yeah,
like,
and
this
so that's the
opinion is
thing, like-
trash. It goes to the trash.
Yeah, so that's the thing. If in a bygone era of letters to the editor, if someone wrote in a defamatory statement and then they publicly printed it, yeah, you've published it. So effectively, that's kind of what this is. Like, they've written an article about a topic, and then someone has then defamed that person in the comments, and they're allowing it to stay up on their posted content. Yeah, I can see the argument that they are the publishers then of those comments. Like, given moderation is a thing that you can do in forums and social media posts and all that sort of stuff.
It didn't used to be. Like, I think that function came in after
you could
the
probably
fact.
delete comments. I think you could
Yeah.
probably delete
you can
comments and
disable
moderate it,
comments
but
as
you
well.
can you couldn't at the time that these comments were made.
Yeah.
That's a point of part of this case, is that at the time these were made, it wasn't an option on Facebook, at least, what they talk about here, for you to just disable the comments function on anything you posted. So they didn't have the option just to turn it off blank and prevent anything from happening. And I think I saw a sort of a little update to this where it's not so much like there's not legislation or anything like that, but I think they were sort of talking about in like legal terms that it's not immediate. Like, if it's to do with, say, a Facebook comment posted on a thing, like the Australian publishes an article, a comment's made where someone says something that you think defames you.
I'm a fucking idiot. I read the Australian. Here's my dumb shit opinion.
Yeah, you can reach out to the publisher, or like the Australian in this example, and I think they're giving like a period where you're allowed to take it down, like as just to act, to be like, someone has reported this comment, we can take it down, and then that leaves it. Or you could leave it up and then face litigation and all that sort of stuff. So it's not like an immediate, oh, well, it's been on the internet for 0.0 blah, blah, blah of a second, and I'm taking you to the cleaners.
There needs to be some reasonable,
no one moves that far.
Reasonable remedy. But the thing is with social media, you post it, the comments go up, and whatever damage is going to be done is already done. Like, very few people are coming back to a Facebook post from 6 weeks ago and say, I wonder what, like, all of the people that
Sharon thought.
Yeah. All of the people that are going to have viewed it will have viewed it by the time someone actually gets around to addressing it and removing it. But
I'm sure Jaden from Cranbourne's got some fucking nuanced opinion, George. On,
are they as spicy as Tom's "eat my asshole" comment, or one wonders? One can only hope.
They are as spicy, but they're also with various spelling mistakes as well littered through it. So, for fun. Now, I guess my immediate response to this is, though, that if this is going to set some sort of precedent,
doesn't this break the internet?
People are just going to like turn off comments, which I kind of think good.
Oh my god, can you imagine?
Can you please turn off the
comment sections?
Can you turn off the comment?
Oh man,
section for everything. I actually wouldn't mind that.
I saw that as like, oh, slippery slope. We're just going to turn off the comment section. I'm like, oh. Be still my beating heart.
Yeah.
Can you that'd be so good.
You remember that Lionel Hutz line from The Simpsons? A world without lawyers? What would that even look like?
And everyone's happy.
We are gonna be wherever you and me. That's what it'd be like. Yeah, that's what it'd be like if you turned off the comment section. Is just everyone would be happy and not annoyed and not angry at each other. So I'm fine with it.
Because I saw some writers talking about, like, I can't remember where I read this, but it was an article where someone was saying, like, it was an overseas perspective on this ruling, being like, Australia's High Court, the equivalent of, like, say, our Supreme Court or whatever, like, has said blah, blah, blah. And they said, oh, that's a real dumb, like, there's such a dumb choice. Hopefully they smarten up. Like, can you imagine, like, holding fucking CNN responsible for what someone tweets under one of their articles? I'm like, that's different, though, because I don't think, at least I looked, say, on Twitter, if I tweet something and then someone replies to my tweet, I don't think I have any power over deleting that tweet. Like, I could report them to be like, this person's inciting violence or this person's being sexist or targeted harassment.
They're responding to your tweet.
Yeah. Yes, they're responding. Yeah, so I can't moderate the replies to my own tweets other than turning them off altogether. But on Facebook, if it's your post, you can remove
Yeah.
people's comments.
Yeah.
100%.
So you have that power to control it as a publisher, whilst you don't on Twitter. So
Are
that
we-
analogy I felt that writer used was not
Is
right.
it?
I was like, no, it's different.
Is it? I wonder, like, is that substantively different, or is it just like a difference in like the technical abilities of the platforms? Like, and if we're going to be legislating on stuff, are we talking about like legislating based on software update, 2.9.8, like, or what it's going to look like in the future?
suppose.
Like, a lot of these things are really subject to change, and like I don't even know how you would implement a precedent like this. Like, I think it would just result in all news publishers switching off all of their comments, or like, is the publisher Facebook, or is the publisher the actual publisher of the article? Like, who's the publisher? It seems like if you actually had to implement this, it would break the internet. More or less.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's just, I suppose, using those two examples, I'd argue that like someone posting something to Facebook and having the comments specifically underneath it would be publishing content, but me just tweeting and then someone else replying to my tweet.
That's what I'm saying. It's
doesn't
very
make me the publisher of their content. Yeah,
it's very dependent on the platform
very
and the
tricky.
technology and how it's currently being used. Or it's like, and it's also like, are we just looking at this in the context of like where people actually are? Like, are we going to regulate Pinterest like this as well? Like, does this, like, how far are we willing to really go with this? I don't know. Fuck them. Shut them all down. That's what I say. Fucking social media is ruining everyone's lives.
If the end result of this is that like comment sections are disabled forever, I mean, that doesn't seem like the worst idea. I mean, I know there's also things to argue of if say this results in also something like Twitter being something completely impossible. I know Twitter is like an epic hell site and everything, but also like meaningful activism and social change and voices of like people who aren't cis white men have been very much amplified on those platforms. So it would be very bad for all that to disappear. So it's a tough one to kind of like legislate properly, but
yay for defamation.
But yeah, I mean, okay, the show lulled. ScoMo can eat my asshole. Did that help?
And we're back.
We're back. And we're back.
Silliness.
That's right. You're here
And
with
on that
Oh,
Jingo
note-
and the baby. Hero.
Jingo and the baby.
Now, name this sound. No, you can't really.
There's no sound. I can't hear it.
Have you been listening to Fox FM again?
I don't know. I'm trying
Is that
to.
the-
I was like,
is that
I
the
can't
set
even
full of
think
the-
of things that terrestrial radio do because I haven't
Yeah.
listened to them in 10 fucking years. But
I thought that was the thing that they did. It was like, this is the mystery sound. And if
Yeah.
you can tell us what this sound is, you get $1,000 or whatever. And it's like, is it a stapler? It's like, yes, it was a stapler. Woo!
congrats
it's
at
dumb.
being overly skilled at a completely meaningless thing. Here's money. What is our culture?
Like one
Now, we
several
are hitting-
$1,000s. So
We are now hitting an hour and 12 minutes. Do we want to talk about fighter jets, or are we calling
wrap that bad boy up. Gotta go we.
On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where you can potentially defame someone on one of our channels. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at George Tsipos.
Follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
And you can follow us all down to the lodge where we're not allowed to be because it's in a different state. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.
If I could be in the ACT right now, you sure as fuck I would not be hanging out at the lodge.
But if you want to get your asshole eaten, then you should bring up.
No, Adam, he has to come to me.
I'm
That's
just saying,
non-negotiable.
How bad do you want to make? That's all I'm
No,
asking.
it's the thing of like, no, he can, like, if he's going to be taking bullshit trips, he can come and eat my asshole. I ain't going to him. This isn't going to be convenient for him at all.
What if you stood outside the door or something? And it was like you had to go outside.
Held the speaker up over your head.
Yeah.
Like, say
Some
anything.
cue cards.
Oh,
No, I'm never going to
Anyway.
live this down, am I?
nope.
Nope.